It's really sad. Why'd you have to say that? Alan's not here. Alan, if for some reason you watch my YouTube, for some reason, we miss you. We wish you were still here. We hope you're enjoying. Well, we miss you. That's all it really is. He's not here. So, proportions. We today are going to do a whole lot of work with finding missing values in proportions. So your textbook would be helpful to have out, and then if you can have out just some clean paper, because we don't have our math journals, this, of course, is just going to be on paper, and then also the homework can just be on random paper if you don't have a notebook or anything to put it in. And then I probably won't really be checking this homework, but you should do it because it's proportion work. I will post the answers in Schoology. Be okay. I don't want to like say I'm going to check this homework and if you lose it you freak out. So but do your homework. I might do a check on it like tomorrow or Wednesday, just to see that people did it. I'm not going to check for accuracy, of course. So we know a couple ways about solving proportions, right? Like if I don't know how to multiply one direction, I can do something the other direction and figure this stuff out. So I want you and your team, wherever you're sitting here or by yourself if you so choose, to start looking at 96 and then move on to 97 and potentially 98 if you work real fast. But in 96, we already kind of introed this problem, right? This, I think the janitor probably got really confused at why none of my smartboard pens were where they're supposed to be. I need you. Wow, that's all. So I'm going to have to recalibrate. 3 different ways. I can really quickly think of 2 ways that we've already done together a lot of times, but I need you and your partners to come up with 3 different ways to solve this proportion. And we actually already looked at this problem previously, so you might remember it. If we know that we can get 3 pounds of Havarti for $7.50, how much could we buy with $10? Some of you will probably quickly remember what we did, other ones might take a bit of time, so talk with each other. 3 different ways. It's not just finding the answer, it's different ways. If you get done with those 3 ways, move on to the next problem. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. I'll say this as an encouragement. I don't hear a lot of people talking, which you might just be thinking and working on your own right now, but I am going to use random cards. So if you don't know what you're doing, talk with a partner, like ask somebody a question, figure out how to solve this. At least in one way. You want 3 ways. Page 420, 421, something like that. Can you see from maybe it's fixed. Any volunteers before I go straight into cards? Volunteers to talk through this. Patrick, what did you do?
So I divided 3 pounds by $7.50. Well, yeah, $7.50. And then I got 2.5, and I thought, so that must be for 1 pound. That much.
So this, if everyone wants to jot this down really quickly, That is actually what? It's our something price here. What's that word? Because it's 1. Unit. So yeah, unit rate, and this because it's a price, this is our unit price. So one way to work with a proportion, break it down to the unit, then using what you need to find. So what'd you do from here?
And then I thought I did 10 divided by 2.4.
Ah, so if I had $10 and I divide by how much each pound costs, you got 4. So Patrick found 4 pounds through first finding the unit rate and then working it up from there. What's another way we could do this? Another way that we could do this. Alex, what do you think? Yeah, that's kind of what Patrick just did with us. We did 1 over 250. That was essentially what Patrick did, just you're thinking about it in a different way. What if I asked you what our scale factor is here, how it is changing? Can you quickly tell me how I multiplied to go from 750 to 10? And that's tough, right? That's kind of a hard problem. So if I can't multiply forwards, what could I do to figure out the multiplication there? Divide backwards, right? So if I can't multiply forwards, I can divide backwards. So please, if you didn't do this method, go ahead and write the proportion on your paper. So 3 over 750, I'll go ahead and write it again just to give you time. We don't know over 10. If we can't multiply forwards, divide backwards, so we do 10 divided by 7.50. What does that tell me my scale factor is here? 2.5? What? You sure?
1.3.
So you're thinking of the unit price, right? This is our scale factor going from the left piece of the proportion to the right piece. Right, so what we're saying is down here times 1.3 repeating gets me my 10. Which in a calculator you can just type in a bunch of 3's. So on top we can multiply by 1.3 repeating, and that will lead me to just about, if you put in enough 3's, your calculator will round it to 4. If you don't put in enough 3's, you'll probably get like 3.999 or however many 3's you had, you'll have that many 9's. Punch a bunch of 3's, you'll end up with the answer as close as you can. Now the third way is actually something that's hanging above my head. Like literally, not metaphorically speaking. Hanging above my head. Cross multiplication. Which a lot of us have kind of tried to reference this year, maybe appropriately, maybe not in quite the right time. Cross multiplication. So I'm going to go rogue from this problem for a second. How many fourths does it take to make a half? 2, right? 2 fourths is a half. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. How many eighths does it take to make a half? 4 of them. And again, 2 times 4, 8 times 1, you get the same thing. How many sixteenths? Right, and this is easy when the numbers work well together. I don't even really need to cross multiply, I can just figure it out. But when the numbers don't work as well together, trying to go from 750 to 10, that's really awkward. It's not like trying to go from 2 to 4 or 8 or anything like that. If we don't know how to do this, we cross multiply. So again, on your note sheet, jot down your proportion. So we have 3 over 750, and I need you guys to do this with me. Anyone ever heard the butterfly method? This sometimes gets called that. So here's where it gets called the butterfly method. You make the wings of the butterfly, and the center body part, whatever you want to say, is your equals. one of your diagonal circles tells you what to multiply, and the other one tells you what to multiply, and then you set them equal. So what's 3 times 10? 30 equal to, this one I can't do the multiplication, but I can write it, right? I could say, well, 7.50 times x. Please write this with me. We haven't really done this year, and I haven't really taught it. I don't know you're dealing with that, but you have this down here. I just want to give you plenty of time. Then I set up an equation. Right? We've talked about equation solving. What do I use? We have something operations to undo stuff. Anyone remember that big fancy word? Starts with an I. Do you have this thing? Yeah. Inverse, right? Inverse operations. So, if I want to get this x by itself, what do I need to undo? What is happening with it right now? Yeah, it's multiplying, right? So, Eleanor, how do I undo multiplication? With division. So, please write this out on your paper. We're going to divide by 7.5 or 7.50 if you want to maintain that kind of dollar amount way of writing it. And when we do that, your x comes out to be 4. Any questions on that? We can move on to the next one and try to solve that one using all 3 methods. Because you should get the same answer all 3 times. So we want to practice all 3 of these strategies. That's not the next one. There we go. How do you find it? Grammy? Graham. Could be Graham. It's an interesting spelling of Graham. Try all 3 methods, but then we're going to talk about what's the best way to do this. And when it says solve the equation, that's the equation formed after cross multiplication. Right? If we use the Patrick method of trying to get to a unit rate, Matt, how could I find the unit rate in this situation? It's 423 for half an hour. Double it. So if I want to go from half an hour to what he makes in 1 hour, which would be our unit pay, our unit rate, we double it. Right? So if I double 423,
Lauren Carpenter, please come to the office. Lauren Carpenter, please come to the office. Also, a reminder that your Phoenix PTSA flower sale orders are due today. If you did not bring it today, please bring it in first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you.
How do I then go from my unit pay to what they're asking us to solve? What do you think?
It's all just done.
Oh, take this card out of the stack. Bernard, what do you think? How do I go from my 8.46 for 1 hour to what I make in 40 hours? Multiply by what? Because now, if I'm trying to go from 1 hour to 40 hours, how do I do that? 3 times. Yep, we multiply by 40. So that's one way that we can try is multiply by 40 here. Get your answer. But if we take the cross multiplication method, actually, could we don't have to, you don't have to write this, but could we do this? How I go from left to right, just our kind of what we started with proportions of what multiplication takes this. Could I go from a half to 40? How do I do that? Do what? Multiply by 80, right? So here I could do this. Again, we're training you in situations that are a bit easier and have options, but not every proportion will do this. Like the next one we work with, they're trying to go from 4 to 7, and that's gross. 4 to 8 would be great, but 4 to 7 is not nice. So cross multiply this, guys. Make your butterfly. And we get 1/2 times the x. I'm going to write my x value on the left this time. 40 times 423. That's a tougher one. That's why I said 169.2. Thank you. And because it's money, I'm going to go ahead and put that second decimal place. Always with money, have 2 decimal places. Now be careful. Do I have any volunteers to tell me how to go from half of an x to an entire x? Okay, Patrick.
So in those operations, you divide 1/2 by 169.20, and you get your answer.
Is there another way? Alex? If we multiply by 2/1, what's that called when you flip the fraction? Reciprocal. If you use reciprocals, we can get rid of this fraction by multiplying by its reciprocal. So you were right. Nothing that you said was wrong. But another method we want to remember, to get rid of fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal. And that turns it into 1. So that then gives us x is, what? 338. You said 40 cents? Somebody verify it for me, please, just to make sure. Never trust only one calculator. Like just, if you have a team of people, get somebody to verify for you. It's just good with anything. Like if you're building something, measuring something, whatever.
Yep.
So, Graham wants to know how long it's going to take to make $1,000. Like, how long do you have to work? How do I change what I have set up here to reflect Graham wanting to know how long it'll take for $1,000? So, I want you to work with your team for a minute. And Trevor, I'll probably give you like 2 or 3 minutes, actually, just give you till the 30. That's what we know for sure. Right? This is only if he works 40 hours in the week. This is what he gets paid. Like, that's set. How do I build, a proportion to answer that question? How long does it take? So try it. All on you. the steps. All you write is the beginning and then the answer. It's kind of pointless. Please make sure you understand the process. If I'm building a proportion, I normally start with just 1/2. So the question is, where do I put my 1,000, and then how do I solve it? So I'm not going to walk all the way through this right now, but where should my 1,000 go? Top or bottom? Top. Why? It's money, right? It has to agree with what is happening in the top. So we put our $1,000 up here, and you can put decimal in those zeros if you want. And then the denominator, X or H or whatever you want to say. Oh yeah, to go from 4.23 to 1,000, you just multiply by, nobody knows that. Well, you can make a good guess, but that's really awkward. Without a calculator, I don't think you could just like, well, yeah, right? Like, it's a really weird number. Either we can use the method we've been practicing with, if I don't know how to multiply, I can divide to figure it out, which is what Patrick just did. He's trying to tell me the scale factor. But always, forever, no matter what, in a proportion, cross multiplication will work. So I want you guys to get comfortable with this. So the rest of class, let's practice kind of doing some cross multiplication. If you haven't done this yet, draw your butterfly. That builds us the equation. My one settle range, 4.23 times x, equals 1/2 times 1,000. What's that? 500. What do I need to do here, Marvin, in order to get the x by itself? Do what? 5? Yeah. We divide by 4.23. Please show this work. Trying to make myself move kind of slowly. X equals what? 118.203330. So hold on. 118.2. Some weird stuff. What was I solving? What labels are in the denominator? Well, hours, right? Not it's just how many hours. So this is hours. What could you really tell him? If we try to make this answer make a little bit more sense. Yeah, dude, work 119 hours, you'll make your goal. Now, accurately, it's like 118.2. But we're talking about money, right? And he wants $1,000. Well, or if I really want to make life easy and round this, I could round this to about, that's not a bad pay, actually. We're kind of snickering because Marvin said get a better job. $8.40 an hour isn't terrible. Like, if you were just starting a minimum wage sort of job. Yeah, if you're like waiting tables or something. But if I call this 120 hours, how many hours does a person normally work in a week? 40. How many weeks?
A lot.
How many weeks is 120 hours in? 3 weeks, right? 40 hours every week. So in 3 weeks, Graham can earn his $1,000. Because remember, we round it up to make sure that Graham has enough money. Does everything we've done here make sense? Now take away taxes. Any questions? Going once? Going twice. Gone. Try this out. Now, this goes a little bit further, so read. You're going to need to read this problem. We are baking. Shiloh? You've never seen Shiloh before?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a dog. Sure.
I really like her.
You're just sitting here. We have another problem. You're just sitting there. Because you're so far over here on the edge, it's hard for you to read at that angle. You really have to. So the biggest question here is, how in the world did they get to that equation? 13 equals 2.5r. Is this correct? And if so, how? I'm going to give you guys a couple more minutes to work on this. Make sure you understand this. So, while you're working, you want to be thinking, if we cross multiply, what equation does that create? Is there a way to do this without cross multiplying? Is there a way to be approximate? Now, you got to be really careful baking. A friend of mine made macarons over break, so we took them on our camping trip, which is funny because we weren't really camping. Baking's particular. If you, she measures everything on a kitchen scale down to the 10th of a gram. She's very particular, and that's how she successfully can make macarons. So you need to be accurate with this work. We might be able to approximate this, but we need to be accurate. If we cross multiply, what equation do we get? Right, because my one wing is the 5 times the x, other is 2 times 13, okay? So wait. Carolyn sets up, okay, so the flour we need is 2.5 times, if you look right down here, the flour we need is 2.5 times R. Why? What is, so R is recipes?
Yeah.
So if we're making one recipe, like we plug in 1 for recipes, how much flour do we need? If we make one recipe, how much flour do we need? In the first sentence of the problem, 5 cups for 2 recipes. Right, so this, right here, 5 cups to make 2 recipes, is the same as what they say down here. Except they don't want a reference to make 2 recipes, because that's kind of weird. Most cookbooks tell you how to make 1. So they're telling us the flour will equal 2.5 times the number of recipes that we have. So then they get to 13 equals 2.5 R. Does that make sense? What does the F represent right here? Flour. What's the 13 in the problem? Well, yeah, cups of flour there, right? He has 13 cups of flour. So they plug in the 13 where the F was. We call that substitution. You plug something in. Then, so if I rewrite this, I have 13 equal to, that's a highlighter, 13 equal to 2.5, because I like decimals, they're fun. How can I get that x by itself? Divide by 2.5 on both sides, or back at the equation that we had. Crap, I moved things. Sorry, everything got all shifted. What can I do here? What can I do here? I can divide by 5 here. So, some people do 26 divided by 5. Some people do 13 divided by 2.5. Let's see if we get the same answer.
Yeah, you do.
So R equals what? 5.2. So really, what should we tell Shiloh what he can do? What he can make? Yeah, but if we think realistically, like, you're right. 5, right? We'd probably say, hey man, you're safe to make 5. You don't have enough for the 6th one, and you don't ever really want to use up every bit of flour that you have, because you might need a little bit extra. Like, you start mixing it and you're like, oh crap, we don't have enough flour. So you want to save a little bit. If we're being realistic, we tell Shiloh 5. But the answer is actually 5.2. Right? So you've got enough for 5, not enough for 6. You're right there on the line. Questions? The next problem, I'm going to offer up candy on this first day back. If you solve one of these proportions, can bring me your work showing me how, and we'll then solve it on the board, you can have some.
You are evil.
No, just one. Just one of them. Just choose one. I would prefer that you do the cross multiplication and then solve the equation method. So you'd have to be able to show out how to do that. But I'm looking for A first, so I'm going to rewrite A up here. And we'll look for somebody for B. So try this out with your partner or whatever. And my board got like moved again. Cross multiplication always works, no matter what. Don't think too hard. Just cross multiply and solve. Right? You want to do it? Easy. So give the exact answer, but then depending on the situation we might round. But if you don't know what the situation is, give the exact answer. Right? So, show, well, you guys can choose color or whatever up here. So calligraphy pen is fancier. What color do you want?
That one, yeah.
This?
Yeah.
Like weird. Hard to see.
Yeah, that one.
That's going to be really hard to see. So I wonder if it's written. I mean, you can, but people are going to be like, hey, you can't see that. Orange?
Yeah.
What?
It's dead.
If you have concerns, questions, issues I can help you with, please stick up a hand.
No.
All noise.
I am busy.
I don't know.
Stop.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you want to go solve one?
Yeah, but can you do the stop sentence? It's hard.
That's like the short way of this process. That's what we're getting to. I'm not sure.
Calm down.
No, boy? I don't think so. It's going to have to be another number. Just think about it. 7 compared to 8. 7's pretty close to 8. So this X is going to be pretty close to 100. So, using the process that we were practicing. Hey guys, I need you to like finish up because we need to review stuff. Hey, you have to put the, yeah, it works easier. Hey, you cannot drag while you're holding the pen. It does not work. It writes. So we'll go over all of these. If you want to cross multiply the diagonal pieces, then divide this all. So you want to do the 7 times the 100, and then the 8 times the x. Now, this is rounded, right? I think the answers that we got are 0.6 repeating forever. But your calculator puts a 7 on the end of it, which isn't actually true. Depends on what they tell you to do based on rounding. So, oh, you're good. If they said round to the 100th place, this would be perfect. If you were trying to solve money, this would be perfect. But if they wanted the exact answer, you might want to say x is, yeah, this is way off, sorry guys. X is 0.6 with the bar above it, showing that it repeats forever. I'm going to try to orient this real quick. Kate, I think I had said that you could come up and do it. Yeah, sorry, I got to get off the bag. It's close. The green part, yeah, this is the nicest pen. Alright, so the starting of this was x over 100, and I think some people struggled with this, so you might need to pay attention. It's a little off, but as you start writing, you'll kind of... Two times 1. So, Kate asked the ingenious question. So wait, if we always, you with me guys? If we always, in cross multiplication, then have to divide by the thing that multiplies by the variable, 8's going to multiply by x, and then I'm going to have to divide by 8. So Kate was like, well, can't I just like show this multiplies to 700 and then divide by the other number that we have? Yes. This is like the shortcut method. If this doesn't make sense to you, then please write out the 700 equal to the 8x. That's really goofy. And then divide it from there. Sorry, my smart board's having issues today. C. Patrick, come up. We got like 2 minutes, so be fast. What did you guys do? Did you break my smart board?
No, we accidentally got kicked out.
I can't get in like close clicking because the screen's out. Okay. Yeah.
Oh my god. This is so okay. How?
Or you can do it on chalkboard.
Yeah.
So we all solved it. They wrote on the board. I don't know what I can do. They're both things.
Good job, Patty.
So,
0.2.
you gotta get
Hey, Mr. Hudson, Patty.
just show one circle and then sit here. Saying you're trying to figure it out. You don't even have the setup correct. You can barely see your equal sign there. Those fractions are really mushed together. You don't have any space to show your work. Don't label ABC before doing then, because you won't know how much space it needs.
Maybe you can stand up so we can practice. You can give it to us again? No.
Hey, we're running out of time. Sorry, my people have come up here and Grant because we're running out of time now. My smart board is not cooperating. But here's these. I got like half a minute maybe. And D, this was 11.2, right? Really awkward. But if we cross multiply, we get 7y 44.8. And if you then divide, what did you get for the answer, Grant? 6.4. All right. Have a great day, guys. Please do your homework. I might actually just collect that individual assignment. Yeah. Sorry that my smart board is really goofy. Patrick's probably enough up to you probably have the same table. Sure. Nice, thank you.